Welcome back, everybody, to Mid-Game Madness. I am your host, Michael Chen. Today's episode, we will be delving deep into a very important concept in Go, but it's not very often talked about. Let's go. I prepared another cute little slide for you guys. Today's topic is on the margin of safety. Now, the margin of safety is more than a Go term. If we just go to our Google and search up margin of safety, and we quickly see the definition. It's a financial term made famous by none other than Warren Buffett, the most famous person. Basically, in finance, the margin of safety is the difference between the price which Warren Buffett buys something and the intrinsic worth of the stock or investment that he makes. And the margin is the difference between the two. Now, applying this to Go, the margin of safety is your lead. Now, we don't always have a lead, but we have a lead half of the time. So why is it important to learn about the margin of safety? Well, one is, and I'm sure that we have all experienced these quite frequently, one is you lose by playing overly safe. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. And the other one is you lose by playing overly aggressive. These are two polar opposites, and sometimes we just don't know how to play so that we can win. We can win more. So in order to use the margin of safety, first we have to know what our margin is, and that requires us to know how to estimate the score of our game. And this is more than just a little count. This is how likely we are to win this game. So as a result, we can adopt an appropriate strategy for our games. So from the last episode, we learned about the difference between Go muscle, like this muscular shark over here, and Go strategy. Basically, muscle, you have to really train yourself and really work hard to get. Now, none of us really work that hard on Go, so we can only get better at strategy. It's sort of the easy way up the ladder, more or less. Anyway, the important thing is to estimate how you are doing in the game so that you can play a better strategy. This way you will win more and you will lose less, and there's a whole slew of side effects that come with it. The first is I just like to keep score, so I always want to know if I'm winning or losing. So that's a reason to itself. The second is you can sound more intelligent in the game reviews, whether it's against whether it's a teaching game with a teacher or with a very strong player, or if it's with your peers who are similar, or if it's with someone who is trying to learn from you, you can always say much more important and more intelligent things during the game review. And so as a result, you can play better and better. Now, the overall components of this is you need to understand how to count points, how to count potential, how to count the safety of your stones, and more interestingly, how to count in the psychology of the game. Now, we're not going to go into any of these details. I'm sure you guys know how to do basically all of these, but none of us really know how to count points, for example. None of us really know how to count down to the last point. but all of us kind of know how how the concept generally plays in the game. So the components of the margin of safety is, first, you see the game as a campaign. It's a sequence of interactions where you either gain some or you lose some, you become more winning or you become less winning, and you have this interaction constantly throughout the game. You might have 20, you might have 30. Sometimes people like to refer to this as fights or conflicts, or important turning events in the game. Now, in order to estimate the current state of the game, you want to count territory, you want to count potential territory, and you also want to count safety. Safety is if you have a weak group, your opponent might take advantage of it. If your opponent is weak, you might take advantage of his weakness, things like that. And now, as you see, there's a lot of uncertainty to our standing in the game. One is you are not really sure if your estimate on the state of the game is accurate. It's uncertainty of your estimate. This includes how well you've counted, how well you've counted potential, and so on. It also includes how sure you are of your entire approach. We're not exactly sure what we should be looking for. And so there's a lot of uncertainties there. The second part of this is uncertainty inherent in the current state of the game, how you see the game right now. Now, there's also uncertainty about future developments. Those are things that will happen in the future that will count, towards getting us a different state of the game. So, and remember, guys, the future is uncertain, but it could have what I would call a drift, an expected loss or a gain. And for example, in a handicapped game, you might expect the person giving the handicap to steadily gain during each of these interactions or sequences of fights that happen in the game going forward. So that also affects how you see the game, how you range the game, and you might have to play more aggressively if you expect your opponent to keep gaining in the future. So uncertainty is a combination of all these risks. It's way more uncertain than we would ever like to do. So you might hear a person say, this game is basically settled. This game has this board is very large. Things like this. A board being large just means there's a long sequence of interactions left to go in the game, and a board that is settled just means there's less consequential, not very much volatility to this to the future. Anyway, this is very similar to, for example, in basketball. With the difference being in the basketball game, you always know the exact score to the current situation, right? In basketball, you know exactly what the score is, but you don't know what the future events are going to look like. Another sport is boxing. If you're a boxer, you do not know exactly what the score is. You also don't know what is happening in the future. So Go is a lot more like boxing. You have an estimate. You might think you're winning or not winning, but you don't know for sure, and you also don't know the future for sure. So if you do have a lead and you're lucky enough to have a margin of some kind, it's very difficult, but it's very rewarding to know how safe your margin is. Now this graph on the background, it could be a winning percentage for an AI, it could be a stock market, it could be anything. So we always, I hope that with understanding some of these concepts, we can get more winning. We're gonna win so much. Anyway, that's a lot of very inconcrete examples. Next we can go look at some concrete examples. Now, this is the one of the most famous pictures in Go. This is Lee Sedol in his Alphago match. He probably lost one of these. And today we're going to be looking at the game 1 of the Lee Sedol versus Alphago match. Now remember, this game is very well studied, so I'm not going to tell you guys what happened early on. I will only tell you how these two are playing in terms of the margin of safety. Now this is another example of I guess it's very important to know how to win a game, but it's also very important to know how to win a game easily. And the best player at keeping a lead and maintaining a very healthy margin of safety is the AI. Okay, let's take a look. I will only be showing you guys how Alphago is maintaining the lead. Okay, so you guys may remember, or you may not. Lee Sedol is black and Alphago is white. This is their first encounter, and this is before any of the AIs really started clearly being superior to humans. And most people expected Lee Sedol to win this game, expected black to win this game. We're gonna go through this very quickly. The gist of this is Alphago not white. Alphago not only played very well in the beginning, it maintained everything safely, and it jumped out to a very big early lead. Now, as you can see, this above black group of Lee Sedol's is basically surrounded. It is alive, but Lee Sedol, the black's only territory is on the right, and white has what looks to be a bigger territory on the left. So at this point, most people think that Alphago is leading, but people don't really know by how much, and so on. And the next few moves, we will see Alphago keep playing, pretty thick, pretty strong, pretty safe. Now, in hindsight, Lee Sedol's move here may have been too defensive. Maybe he should have tried to capture make a larger capture of these two stones. But in any case, he played a relatively safe capturing move. As a result, Alphago has somewhat of a lead. Almost everyone believes this, but almost no one knows by how much. So here's the first Alphago margin of safety move. It is here. Now this is a very safe move. If white plays a regular move, black can play something like this to move out these 5 stones and create many complications. Although it seems white is not afraid of this, but because Alphago did this sort of win percentage analysis, it thinks the best way to play is to play a safe continuation by playing here. Now, and AIs do this a lot. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but AIs tend to pick the highest win percentage moves, and that often results in them winning by half a point at the end of the game. So if you simply study what the AI does at each point of the game, you will end up having this slow, meticulous style, which is not helpful for us unless we are able to really learn the importance of the margin of safety. Anyway, this is the first safe move. And at this point, I remember very vividly at the time, the commentators are saying, wow, look at this black making a very huge territory on the middle here. It seems like Li Suido is really, really clawing his way back into the game. And they're right. It seems that White may have done something like this to, to live and destroy more of Black's territory, but he did not, or she. Alphago did. Alphago chose a very safe continuation that gave it Sente, and basically at this point, many people are holding out hope that Li Suido is coming back, and after seeing some of these almost pretty clear suboptimal moves by Alphago, people are sort of gaining hope again, and saying how this computer isn't really super strong, and they will keep saying this even after the end of the game. Anyway, if you look at this through the lens of a margin of safety, if you take White's perspective, clearly he has estimated the game, he estimated that he is ahead, and he has chosen a continuation that is very clear. By giving up this very large territory, Alphago thinks that he not only has maintained the lead, but he has also reduced the number of future interactions. So he has reduced the variance to the score, to the state of the game. So his win percentage went up, even though his lead may have shrunk. So the next few moves are preparation moves. For this move, Alphago here is premeditated. It clearly has thought about playing here before all of these sequences. Probably the important thing of gaining Sente at this point, at the expense of some territory and lead in the game. It clearly having Sente to play this move was good. Many people said this was the crowning achievement of AI. Now this was before Game 2 when there were other crowning achievements. But anyway, the result of this fighting here was that White captured 3 black stones in Black's territory in Sente. Black captured these 3 stones. So Black's territory remained more or less the same. White gained some in Sente. So White has solidified his lead even more. And so here is another relatively safe move. Alphago fixed here, maintained a very large territory. Right now, you can clearly see White is not trying to achieve much more. He is only interested in preserving what he has. And I will show you guys a few more. Now, here was another, because when Alphago came out, people didn't really know how strong it was. And so here was one very clear mistake that Alphago made. So for most of Alphago's moves, people said, maybe it's the right move, maybe it's not the right move. We just don't know. But here there was clearly a bad move by Alphago, and here because the best points move for White was here. If Black played somewhere else, Alphago can play this, cut, Atari and saves the 3 white stones. So this white's move is Sente. In the game, Alphago played a relatively beginner type of move, like a move that you and I would probably play, and ended up with Gote. But no problem. In hindsight, most people doing post-match analysis resorted to saying Alphago probably would play the correct move if the game was closer. So this was another situation where AlphaGo's margin of safety expectations really made it see the two approaches as very similar because the win percentages are very similar, but the lead may or may not be, and so that's what was really scary about AlphaGo and AI in general. It really was able to always maintain this very cold, very stoic, very rational approach to the game, and that's something we probably should also learn from. There was another move before that was this move that was clearly something that was clearly losing in terms of points. White can play here and gain several more points, 3 or 4. So now, the reason why AlphaGo looks like a relatively weak amateur player when it has such a big lead is precisely because AlphaGo can still win the game even though it plays these very suboptimal moves. So compared to us humans who may not have as good a view of the status of the game, read on the game, as we would say, the machine is really remarkable. But really, remember, it's if you copy these AlphaGo moves, you may not get a very good result in your game. AlphaGo would play these bad moves and win by half a point, but when we do it, we would lose by 5 points. So anyway, let's just take a look at a few more AlphaGo moves. Here was another one. See, AlphaGo elects to play this ko, but right after Lee Sedol takes the ko, it plays the very submissive, makes 2 eyes right away. At least it could have played here the Atari and then connected, which gives black no opportunity to capture this white stone. But if you have a good enough lead, you can do whatever you want. You can also humiliate your opponents, which that's the topic. Anyway, the game only lasted a few more moves, and with Lee Sedol resigning, at this point, White's lead has shrunken down to just a few points, less than 5 points. But from all these clearly suboptimal moves that White played earlier, White's original lead was much larger. So the takeaway from this game is, remember, the margin of safety for a very strong player is not the same as your own margin of safety, right? So you can't just copy these bad strong player moves. They're only bad because they will win the game no matter what. And so the important thing is you need to figure out your own margin of safety, which is how reliable your own judgment of the position is. For example, my own positional judgment is not very good, but I can probably get it down to within 5 to 10 points. So with that, and then with future uncertainty, I may play defensively and play these AlphaGo type of soft moves. I may lose another 5 to 10 points going forward into the end game if the game is if there's a reasonable amount of game left. So my own personal margin of safety is about 15 points. So if I estimate myself to be winning by 15 points, I think it's relatively easy. I can coast myself to victory. I will make a reassessment at a future date, maybe after another 5 to 10 moves. And if the margin keeps being larger than 15 points or so, I can rest easy and feel safe. For you guys, maybe it's a little more, maybe it's a little less. And if it's a longer game where we can take more time to analyze and estimate the state of the game, we may be able to cut that down even more. Everyone has a different margin of safety. Keeping your margin of safety is very important, and it's one of the most important components of getting good strategy into your game. So today we toured a very classic game. We studied the margin of safety, in particular how AlphaGo keeps backing off and playing and losing points near the end game, but it keeps a very safe margin of victory. And as a result, Lee Sedol resigned, just gives up. If you played a very strong player and your opponent starts to playing these AlphaGo type moves, you probably know that you're in trouble. So there's a lot we can extrapolate from our position, just from your opponent's playing style. Now, your opponents might trick you, but if you are up on these tricks, you can probably do better in your games than before. So your opponent, the way your opponent is playing tells you a lot about his judgment of the game. And if you trust his judgment, you may be able to do the lazy thing and just take his judgment. Or you may adjust your own judgment a little bit as well. This happens way more. And just many different strategies to take advantage of this. You can set traps. If you think the game is very close, but your opponent is playing as if he is gone, you can set a trap, make him overextend, and really win the game that way. Or if your opponent thinks the game is won by himself, but he has perhaps only taken into account the future course of the game, but not the uncertainty from the future course of the game, but not from his own judgment. Maybe his lead is smaller than he thinks it is, and then you can make some very good comebacks you may have to play even more aggressive then. And when you are ahead, you can, with this important concept of margin of safety, if you're over the margin, you can adopt a very good winning style and seal your victory. Incidentally, if you guys are a little bit older, and in Go age, older than 20 years old is very old, you might see a lot of these younger kids who are very good at reading, who has taken a lot of lessons, who have a lot of Go muscle, as we call them. This is how you can play tricks on them and win more games against these very, very strong kids. So this brings us to our conclusion. Remember, Go is both muscle and Go strategy. The Go muscle is reading, judgment, and evaluations. Skill is strategy, adopting a good strategy going forward. And a lot of muscle can give you a lot of skill, but a lot of skill is nothing if you don't have any muscle. So this is just to re-emphasize that muscle is very important, even though what we will do is only look at the skill. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.